following is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee.
Welcome into the the Main Street Preps North show, brought to you by Main Street Media Television and the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, where fans don't let fans drive drunk. I'm Blaine Kellar, normally joined by co-host Brady McAtamney in Montgomery County, but Brady's feeling a little under the weather. We hope he gets to feeling a little bit better here soon, but I'm a one-man crew today. So hope you're ready for 30 minutes of me talking. But let's go ahead and get started right away here, bringing in White House Heritage football coach Chad Broderick. Coach Broderick, thanks for the time today. How are we?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing great. And I'm sure you and your program are riding a little bit higher. You know, after last week, you come off the bye week and you pick up your first win number one as head coach at White House Heritage, 21-12 over Stewart County. Coach, what was the difference in that game? And kind of talk to us about that one a little bit.
We played really well in the first half, and I was really proud of the kids for how they played. But then I thought at halftime we didn't handle that well at all and kind of lost focus. And I think that's just part of us growing up, and we played really poorly in the second half, to be honest. But our kids fought hard in the fourth quarter and found a way to win. And I guess I was just really happy for them. But we got to learn from losing, and we also got to learn from winning and things we could have done better to make the game not as competitive as it was. So, but very happy for them. And like I said, thought we played great in the first half, and then for most of the second half played really poorly, but found a way to keep fighting and catch a couple breaks and win the game.
Coach, you mentioned it there at the beginning, kind of watching your team grow up, even in the games that you do pick up wins, there's still learning moments and growing moments. As you've gathered and gone through this first season at White House Heritage, how have you seen your team mature from week one going into this week's last game of the season against White House?
Yeah, I don't think any of us thought it would go the way it went. There was times, I know every coach and every player, it was just rough on us in terms of, you know, whether they were injured or their friend was injured or, you know, you're losing. But I saw a team get closer and closer through losing, which is not easy to do. It's, you know, normally when you lose like that, the team breaks apart and they blame each other and they blame the coaches and, you know, it's everybody else's fault but my own. And our team didn't do that. We just came together and got closer and closer. And I'm so thankful for them kids for that. Because if we all would have blamed each other, it'd have been a miserable year. And instead, I feel like we got closer through it all. And it was a very enjoyable year because of that. I know that sounds crazy to say. That's not what we want. We don't want to lose. But when you go through what we went through, it's a whole lot better to be together than apart.
A bit of an interesting statement you had there, kind of finding a way to enjoy those moments through already what is a 1-8 season. What moments were those? You know, what ways did you guys find the good in what you were going through, knowing that it's been a little bit of a building process here in year one?
Yeah, I think anytime you come in somewhere, you're going to be different than the guy before you. And I think that took them a little time to get adjusted to. And then, you know, by the time we do that, you know, we played 2 or 3 games this year with 11 starters out, and that's just one side of the ball. Some of them started both ways. So if you add that up, I don't know, 15 or 16 positions on offense and defense we were without that were starters. So it was just really tough to kind of even get in a groove of anything because every week you're replacing somebody with somebody else. And, you know, then this kid, he's injured. You're replacing him with somebody else. And it was just tough to kind of get in a rhythm of anything going. But the kid, I don't know, we just came together at some point, you know, right before the middle of the year and just got closer and closer and closer. And we practiced. I guess the part of football that I enjoy, this is going to sound weird to people, but I hate the games. I love our practices. I love the off season. I love spring, summer, it practices Monday through Thursday and hate the games. Always have. And we practice great all year. It's just been tough to overcome the amount of injuries that we had, but our kids fought hard to do that, and to learn and to grow. And I'm very proud of them for that.
Yeah, I know you mentioned the injuries all year long, and it seemed like you guys had gotten a little bit healthy in that bye week before you faced off against Stewart County. How are you feeling right now, injury wise, going into the Rotary Cup rivalry this Friday?
Yeah, we're as healthy as we've been all year. We've still got some kids out that were starters, or they've had bad luck and shoulders and one knee and a couple other minor things with kids that are out still. But for us, we feel healthy. So we're as healthy as we've been all year. Colby Holsey, probably, the leader of our team, missed the whole season and got to play last week versus Stewart County. And just the toughness of this kid, man. He's not even close to 100% probably. He can't run full speed. I'm pretty sure he played 90% of the snaps and he played like 5 snaps of our first game this year. And that's just the kind of kids we have and the kind of kid that Colby is. And can't say enough good things about him and the rest of our seniors.
Yeah, and it's a big one for your seniors to close out the year. It kind of shows the determination that they definitely have for you closing out this regular season. What do you think this rivalry kind of means to them, based on the past couple of years that White House and White House Heritage has played? I know you personally were a White House student. So, what's the rivalry been like kind of leading up into this week?
Yeah, I've tried not to get caught up in any of it. I don't feel like it's a dirty rivalry. I don't know. I just think back to when I was in school at White House and how Greenbrier was, or Portland. I'm not saying it was dirty then, but there was a lot of probably animosity is the best way to put it, where I hope it's not like that. I want our community to be one. I've always loved this town and always will. But I know both teams want to win very badly, and I know the kids know each other. And I think there's been, the schools painting each other's rocks this week, which has been, I don't know, weird to me. We're out there protecting at night or something. So it means a lot to them. But I want it to be in the right way. Coach Hamilton at White House was in my wedding. I'm friends with him and Coach Pond, and coached a few of the other people on their staff. So, I want it to be a rivalry, but I want it to be a healthy one where we respect each other and remember that we're all from the same great community.
Yeah, I really did want to bring that up. You kind of mentioned it there. Whenever you were a student, of course, White House Heritage wasn't around back then. So, the rivalries were definitely, as you mentioned, Portland, Greenbrier, probably even Springfield. Whenever you've kind of looked through this first year and even during your time at East Robertson, how do you think the dynamic of rivalries have kind of changed in the White House area, maybe in the past 17 years?
Yeah, I think I can remember being a kid, and the big game was White House and Portland, and then I felt like when I was in high school, it became more Greenbrier, and I won't speak for what they are now. And then for us here, it feels like it's White House and East Robertson. So I don't, and then I don't know if White House if it's Heritage, Greenbrier, Portland, whoever. But it's definitely changed. Just the whole town has changed. 17 years, it's amazing. How this town has changed, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And, it was interesting. I was at East Robertson yesterday talking to some students, and I asked them who they thought their rival was. Half of them said White House Heritage. The other half said Joe Burns. I wasn't really expecting that. So I just thought that was a bit of an interesting thing to see the dynamics change a little bit depending on who you ask.
Yeah. I can remember when I first got to East Robertson, it was like probably what you were expecting. It was only Joe Burns. So I think just even in that short amount of time, how things have changed.
Absolutely. Well, you've got your last game of the season here against White House. You want to finish strong, I'm sure. In regards to your players and your coaching staff and your team, what do you want to see in this final week, Coach? And we'll get you out of here with that.
Well, I'm pretty confident what I'll see. We're going to play hard and play for each other. And that's really all I want to see. I've never told our kids that our goal is to win. Our goal is to be our best in everything that we do. And I think we'll come out and do that. We've got to make sure we do it for 4 quarters, where I think, hopefully we learned a lesson. And we've talked all year about not looking at the scoreboard, and I think they thought I meant because we might be losing. But I think Friday we looked at the scoreboard and it affected us in a bad way because we were winning. So I think we'll come out and play hard. I think White House will come out and play hard, and I hope it's a competitive game, injury-free for both sides, and just excited to see our kids compete again.
Yeah, it's one of the big ones. We hope for an injury-free game Friday. Coach, thank you so much for your time and best of luck.
All right, thank you. Bye.
So that was White House Heritage head coach Chad Broderick heading into the last week of the season in the Rotary Cup between White House and White House Heritage. We're going to take a break here on Main Street Preps North, brought to you by Main Street Media TV. Stay tuned. We'll give you our one thing, player of the week, and game of the week.
It was just a few drinks. I'm good. I thought it was good.
After every game, we always have a few. It's no big deal. It was no big deal.
Hey, I can hold my liquor.
I thought I could hold my liquor.
We are back on Main Street Preps North, brought to you by Main Street Media Television and the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, where fans don't let fans drive drunk. Let's do a little something different here. Brady's out, and we would normally bring in our second coach at this point, but I think heading into week 11 of the Tennessee high school football season, it's a good a time as any to talk about the playoff picture. We've got 5 of the 6 teams in county looking forward to week 12, looking forward to the first week of November playing in the playoffs. White House Heritage, who we just talked to, head coach Chad Broderick, will be the lone Robertson County area team not to make it. Let's start off with East Robertson, likely to host Meigs or Marion County in round 1. They'll be hosting for, if I have this right, the majority of the postseason, that Class 2A postseason. Just a great season there from Chase Brooks and the Indians. A lot of success there, 8-1, looking to go 9-1 with a Thursday night game against Whites Creek tonight. Now, Meigs County, if that's the team that they face, it's a 1v4 in the first round, and I think that's a familiar name for a lot of East Robertson fans. Meigs won last year's first round against East Robertson, I should say, 30-12. So a little bit of revenge there maybe for that senior class and those upperclassmen. I'm sure that they weren't happy to see Taylor Groves kind of go out on that sour note. So kind of an interesting matchup there, and I think that second round game would be pretty interesting too. They would likely play and host Tyner Academy, who's one of the top 10 teams in the Associated Press Class 2A. I think their lone loss is to Maryville or Alcoa, one of those teams. You'll have to forgive me, but really interesting second round matchup and a little bit of history on that first round there. As for Springfield, the other top seed that will likely host to start the postseason, they will host either 6-2 Southwind or travel to 5-4 Memphis Central next week. And that all depends on how tonight's or Friday night's game against Northwest will go. If they win it, which I believe they should, they will host Southwind, which seems like a pretty tough team. I mean, 6-2 is the number 3 seed. Sounds like they might have gotten a lot of success during their out of region slate. I don't know a whole lot about the Memphis area schools, so you have to forgive me for this. But I think as long as Springfield takes care of business, they should be heading to face Munford in that second round, traveling out to that Memphis area with a shot after that to face off against Henry County. Greenbrier's situation is probably the most interesting, and of course it's coming in Region 5-4A. The Bobcats are towing the line between number 4 and number 2. They can't be number 3, but they can either host a playoff game or be the worst seed in Region 5-4A, and that all boils down to Friday's road game at Marshall County. Should be a really fun one. Both of those teams lost to Procone in the region. Both of them had pretty close games there, pretty competitive. Marshall County's got a good offense and is playing mad after losing to the Firebirds a couple of weeks ago. Greenbrier had a great defensive performance last week, but it really needs to get its offense in shape if it wants to host a playoff game. I think I have Marshall County winning this one, so let's go with that playoff scenario, if you will. And Greenbrier would be traveling to face Lexington on the road. Springfield fans might have a little bit of familiarity with that one when the Jackets were in 4A. If they host, they'll likely face Chester County, another team that Springfield faced in the postseason a couple of years ago. So I think that's obviously one of the most interesting scenarios in 4A is looking at a team that with a win and Creekwood loss could host a playoff game for the first time in at least 5 years. But if they lose, they're the worst seed and they're facing the top team in Region 6 4A, I believe. On to Joe Burns. We had Joe Burns head coach Tom Atkins on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about his playoff prediction being at Whitwell. He thought it would either be South Pittsburgh or Whitwell, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, we'll likely play Whitwell. And that was heading into week 7 or week 8 against East Robertson. So Coach Atkins has been doing this long enough to know where he'll be going. They'll face at 8-2 Whitwell, a team that they beat in the first round of the postseason last season, I should say. On to White House, really tough draw. They can finish with some serious momentum. If they beat White House Heritage this week, they'll win their last 3 games. They'll be on a hot streak heading into the postseason, but they'll face, I believe, the loser of 8-1 Smith County or 8-1 East Nashville. So really tough break there for them. I think both of those teams are really, really solid. White House beat Smith County at home last year on a really impressive 4th down play, but East Nashville was the one to eliminate them. So I think you kind of hope that momentum makes something, but if not, you're kind of looking at a first round exit there. But honestly, the most interesting thing is that a lot of these teams might be able to make it past that first round and move on to the next round of the postseason. So that's a little bit of your playoff picture right now. Of course, a lot of more crazy things can happen in the Robertson County area. Springfield could lose, which, any given Friday, but I think you're kind of looking at those scenarios and you're thinking East Robertson and Springfield will host. Greenbrier, Joe Burns, and White House will be on the road. So with that, we'll take another break, Billy. You're listening to Main Street Preps North, brought to you by Main Street Media TV and the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. When we come back, Game of the Week and Player of the Week in Robertson County.
It's just a few cocktails at happy hour.
It's just a few cocktails at happy hour.
You really good try.
There aren't any cops around. I didn't think there were any cops around.
I drink and drive all the time.
Sir, you've been in a serious crash. I need you to hang on, okay? Rub your hands, sir. Where you are right now?
And we are back on Main Street Preps North. One-man crew here, I guess 2-man crew with my producer, Billy Derrick here. Really appreciate him helping me out here. Brady McAtamney, our normal Montgomery County guy. A little sick today, a little under the weather. So we're stretching out as much as we can in Robertson County. Let's talk a little bit about some one things going on in the area. Of course, a lot of fall sports are coming to a close. Girls soccer is over in Robertson County. Volleyball is over in Robertson County. There's still one more, though. That is not football, and that's cross country, where I just came from the Hermitage to watch the Region 5/5A/AA meet to see who went on to the state tournament. And we have 4, at least in that region from the Robertson County area, that are moving on to next week's state meet at Sanders Ferry Park. White House Heritage placed 4th on the boys' side to take a team finish into the state tournament. They're hoping for a top 5 placement in there. They had a couple of, I think they had one player, I think it was Hayden Paget, finished 4th. Another player finished in the top 20 for them. A nice showing for them, and they've had a really strong showing all season. On the boys' side, you've got 2 more. White House's Logan Chudzig finished 3rd. And in the first 6 or so minutes of that race, he was really chugging for first, really battling with Liberty Creek and trying to get that top spot. But takes a top 3 finish. His team finishes outside of the top 4. So he'll be an individual, as well as Greenbrier's Will Kiefer, who finished 16th. A lot of interesting storylines there. White House Heritage is poised for a really, really strong finish. I think they weren't too happy with a 4th place finish at the region tournament. I think they're probably going to try to gun for something much higher than that at the state. Logan Shudzik played really well, ran really well. I guess you don't really play cross country, but you run it. I don't know. Somebody might get mad at me for that. But, Greenbrier, Will Kiefer, back-to-back state tournament qualifier. Same for Logan Shudzik. Really good stuff by both of those guys. On the girls' side, Emily Tippelman, hope I'm saying that right, from White House qualified as well. I believe she was either the 4th or the 5th place individual qualifier. White House Heritage does not qualify as a team or individual, and Greenbrier did not have a team. East Robertson is supposed to be in that region, but they did not have a team this season either. So you're looking at 3 individuals and 1 team going into next week's Hendersonville meet. The other thing, let's talk a little bit more about football. All 6 Robertson County football teams won last week. And, I think something similar happened with Metro last year or a couple weeks ago. But this is the first time in at least 10 years that this has happened in the county. A win equinox, if you will. Part of the issue with that, trying to find a week where all 6 teams win is the 3 inter-county rivalries that happen throughout the season. So really you're limited to about 7 weeks as opposed to 10. But it was good to see for White House Heritage and Greenbrier especially, as we talked about with head coach Chad Broderick earlier on the show. The Patriots picking up their first win. It was a big one and it avoided a winless season. They might surprise White House this week, but that's not the way that I'm kind of looking at that rivalry right now. And of course, Greenbrier clinching its first postseason berth since 2017 with a 30-6 win over Tullahoma. I don't have that number pulled up exactly, but 2 really solid wins, and it really shows that the county has had a pretty solid year across the board. Joe Burns beat Ezell Harding. Springfield beat Portland without Devin Crenshaw. Greenbrier, of course, beat Tullahoma. White House Heritage beat Stewart County. And East Robertson beat Forest on Thursday. I think that's everybody, which is pretty impressive off the dome there. Let's go to our game of the week. Talking a little bit about the Rotary Cup between White House Heritage and White House. Chad Broderick's team is getting healthy. As he mentioned earlier, they've got a couple of playmakers whenever they are at 100%. Dontarius Teasley is a guy to look out for. Colby Hulsey, of course, definitely makes some plays. He made a lot of plays in the Jamboree at the beginning of the preseason. So it would be really interesting to see him back and to get those guys back. And, you'd like to see their offensive line. That was a strength that Broderick thought they had going into the year. If they could kind of hold up against White House's line. White House has a really impressive line, a couple of guys getting looked at college-wise. I think this could snap momentum. White House Heritage could play spoiler here. And, definitely home field advantage helps with that. But I think White House definitely has the advantage here. And, it helps with it being the only game in the county this week. So if you're looking for your game of the week, that's the only one in the Robertson County area. Other games, as I mentioned, Springfield at Northwest, Greenbrier at Marshall County. Those both hold interesting playoff implications. Springfield could be on the road if they lose. And Portland would have to win, of course, against Henry County. Other games, you've got East Robertson and Whites Creek tonight. That has been moved up to Thursday as opposed to Friday. And Joe Burns at Sycamore, a team they beat last year to get some momentum going into the playoffs. Here's your player of the week in the Robertson County area. And I've got quite a few. Since Brady's out, I figured that I'd give you 2 or 3 from the Robertson County area to shout out because there were a lot of really good performances this week. You had a 1A, 1B running back combination of Zach Prince and Isaiah Groves. East Robertson's 2 running backs combined for 325 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Zach Prince is getting a lot of love as a senior. He's picking up some recruiting steam. I wrote a story on that last week. But at the same time, Isaiah Groves is another weapon for this East Robertson team that you have to watch out for. I think about week 3, Isaiah Groves suffered, I want to say, a knee injury. Correct me if I'm wrong, East Robertson coaches, but I believe he suffered a knee injury. So he was sidelined for a couple of weeks. That gave Zach Prince the starting job and really all the snaps. And that's kind of led to the Mr. Football season that he's been having this year. But now that Isaiah's healthy again, you've got a 1A and a 1B of 2 guys. If they were healthy, I think both of those guys could be up for Mr. Football nominations, individually. other performances, our Main Street Preps Player of the Week that we just announced about an hour ago. Springfield's Jaquavion Johnson put up a really good game on defense. 2 interceptions against Portland, 2 passes deflected, and a pick 6. I don't know why they kept throwing his way. You know, he had a really solid game, and he just kept putting up interceptions and pass deflections. Given Portland's not a team that runs the ball a whole lot, at least based on my experience of them. I know Cullen Box has kind of added that dimension to their team, but Jaquavion Johnson had a really good game. And I think if Devin Crenshaw isn't as healthy, their quarterback, if he's not as healthy as he could be down the stretch of the season, Springfield is really going to want to rely on its defense. And Jaquavion's going to be one of those guys. Our last player of the week, Joe Burns Taylor Head, 3 offensive and 1 defensive touchdown versus Ezel Harding, snapped a 4-game losing streak. And, they really needed it from their main guy. Taylor's a guy who has been a baseball and basketball star, but came back to the football field this year after spending a couple of years away. He's had an up and down year, I'd say, and I think he'd agree to that. But, he really found a way to score against Ezel Harding and kind of put his team on the right track. And I think it definitely helped having his top receiver back. Antoine Lucas was hurt on the first kickoff of the season against Harpeth, and that definitely hurt a dimension of their offense for sure. So to have him back and to have another weapon going into the postseason, I'm not going to say that they go on the road at Whitwell again and upset them, but I think at very least they have a shot because they're healthy. If you can get healthy at the right time and get the weapons that no one's seen throughout the year, that's definitely going to be an advantage. So those are our 3 guys. That's the game of the week, the player of the week, football scenarios, football wins, all that and more. I hope I covered the bases with you this week on Main Street Preps North, brought to you by Main Street Media Television and the Tennessee Highway Safety Office, where fans don't let fans drive drunk. Come back next week where hopefully Brady will be healthy and we can talk some more stuff. See ya.